Deadline day and Locked On NBA, and we are live. The latest rumors and moves with analysis from Matt Moore and Haize and local expert analysis from Locked On's local experts today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you're going to score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com today to get started. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And today I'll be guiding you through the NBA trade deadline with the help of two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network, the man of 1,000 podcast. It's Matt Moore. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, it is Haize. All right, we are live here with just a little over half an hour to go before the official deadline. I thought we would take a look, catch you up on some of the most latest rumors and deals that are getting done. The latest one that I see, and one of the bigger ones, is that the Hawks are trading forward DeAndre Hunter to the Cleveland Cavaliers in exchange for Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, and multiple second-round picks. Matt, we're going to talk about all of these trades, but just on this one, this Hawks deal, this Cavs deal to acquire DeAndre Hunter, what do you think?
So it's a really interesting trade, I think, from the perspective of, is it an upgrade in talent? Probably. It's very interesting to kind of look at it from the lens of the playoffs, right? Where LeVert's actually taken a huge step forward in his playmaking. He was never really a high-level playmaker, and he got there the last two seasons. He's been sensational for them as a playmaker, coming off the bench, being able to make plays for others. Hunter's not that guy. He's a 3-and-D wing. So you add a guy that you no longer have to worry about, like, can we trust Isaac Okoro to knock down shots? Because he's our defender. Can you really trust Sam Merrill to be a defensive guy? Can you handle that? They add Hunter now. Niang, ultimately, to be perfectly honest with you, there's a lot of situations which he's more of a problem than a benefit. The idea of Georges Niang is very good. The reality of him is that he makes a lot of plays that you're just kind of like, that was tough. Like a little bit of boneheaded plays on top of some good ones. He was a high volume spot up weapon, but Hunter is ultimately better. You have the physicality and the athleticism. Hunter's not going to be the creator, so you have less creation now, especially in units where you don't have the big two on the floor. But the point is, in the playoffs, you're not going to be without those guys for very long. So this was a playoff-oriented move, and I like it a lot. Atlanta ultimately they had a glut on the forward position that clears up minutes for Zachary Risache. That's probably a smart move, and they cash in on a guy that was honestly a six-man of the year contender this season in Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter, you look at him scoring 19 points, almost 40% shooting, three-point range. Like, he is a solid defender. Like, I love this. This is literally an upgrade to me in every way over Karis LeVert that you could be looking for. And I think that the Cavs, their desire to stay aggressive, even though they're the number one team in the East per record, is smart. They're staying ahead of the curve. They understand the matchups that they're going to be facing here in the Eastern Conference playoffs, and this is a move that helps them prepare for those matchups. The Cleveland Cavaliers, this was just a smart move. I love the way that they executed it, and this is what the benefit they're taking advantage of them being beneath even the luxury tax leading into this trade before next season, where they go over the second tax apron. So the Cavs just have been operating like a smart team with their money, and they're able to capitalize and strike.
Doug, one thing I think is kind of the right way to put this is, I have a friend whose son is a huge Cavs fan, a young boy. And so he was asking me for, like, can you put this in terms that he can understand, preferably in Pokemon? So what I've described to him is that this is like taking a Munchlax and a Haunter and upgrading it for a Rapidash. There's no evolution beyond that for Hunter, but it is I think a very high quality weapon for them to use in battles.
And it's certainly better for Cavs fans to embrace this move than some kind of non-move that helped them with some kind of tax bill, right? Because I think that was the sort of scary thing for the Cavs, is that they were going to go into this deadline, make something that was really nothing. But this is not a nothing trade, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the most important thing here is they did not trade Dean Wade. So as long as that is the case, they're in a good spot to compete for a championship.
I was just about to ask, how did this impact the Dean Wade minute? So it's good to see that those are still intact.
Dean Wade next season, sixth man of the year.
All right, book it. The Phoenix Suns, they miss out on Jimmy Butler. We're going to be talking much more about the Jimmy Butler to Golden State deal coming up. But I want to tell you about a deal that Phoenix is reportedly doing with Charlotte, trading Yusuf Nurkic to Charlotte and a 2026 first-round pick that is the least favorable of Phoenix, Washington, Orlando, and Memphis. In exchange, Phoenix gets Cody Martin and Vasa Micic. Haize, what do you? This deal just was reported. What do you think about this deal? What does it do for Phoenix?
I mean, the fact that they had to give up a first-round pick to get rid of Nurkic is a little surprising to me. But I mean, they had to do something. For Phoenix, I keep the same opinion that I had on them when we talked before, Doug. Like, I just look at them as like they're just scrapping for something that makes sense of their roster. And I don't know if this trade does it any, to be 100% honest with you, but they did something, I guess.
Yeah, we'll come back to this nonsense as another team bails on Yusuf Nurkic. Via Shams Charania of ESPN, the Los Angeles Clippers are trading Terrence Mann and Bones Highland to the Atlanta Hawks for Bogdan Bogdanovic and 3 second-round picks, sources tell ESPN. The Clippers just picked up Bogdan.
That's a great move.
What does that? What does that do?
Okay, so you lose Terrence Mann's defense. I think that's significant here because Mann's a pretty good defender. But you now have James. Okay, so this is weird, right? So they have James Harden as an on-ball creator, and they have Kawhi Leonard as an on-ball creator, and they have Norman Powell as an on-ball creator, and they have Bogdan Bogdanovic as an on-ball creator. Bogdan, I had heard sources that said that he wanted out of Atlanta, that he was ready to go actually pursue a championship. Don't know if this gets them necessarily that close, but look, the Clippers are hanging in there. They've got a top-ranked defense. They've gotten Kawhi Leonard back. They've been red hot until the Lakers beat the pants off of them. This is pretty good work. This is pretty insanely good work for the Clippers here. They sent Terrence Mann and Bones Highland, who they were looking to offload anyway. They did not they wanted Bones gone. They wanted Bones and PJ Tucker gone. And so they move off of both of those guys. They have to give up Terrence Mann, which is a bummer, but you do Terrence Mann for Bogdanovic pretty much anytime you do this, and you pick up 3 seconds. Okay, if you're the Clippers, why are you adding second-round picks? I mean, you can. It's just good to have them, so they can definitely just stash them. But I mean, they got some options here, Haize, if they want to do something else here. This is kind of interesting by the Clippers.
It's interesting. I like the getting Bogdanovic there for sure. I mean, getting him over Mann is a little bit more of a consistent player. I like that. The thing with the 3 second-round picks, the way that I look at that, the second-round picks are starting to become, and we're all around the same age here, right? You remember when your grandmothers used to carry those strawberry candies in their purse?
I do.
That's what second-round picks are now.
Mine was Werther's, but go on.
Same thing. It's just you can hand them out if you need to. It's just something you can hand out if you just need to sweeten the pot or congratulate somebody. But I like getting Bogdanovic here for the Clippers. I think what he's going to provide in shooting for that team, especially playing off of James Harden, I can see that working out well for them.
So 24 games played for Bogdanovic this season in Atlanta. Matt, you mentioned that he wanted out. He was kind of playing like it. His effective field goal percentage in the 9th percentile, according to Cleaning the Glass. His three-point percentage at 30%. That'd be 14th percentile. So hopefully he rebounds now that he is moving out west. Really quickly, before we take a short pause, what does this say about Atlanta now? They've moved Hunter, now Bogdanovic, clearing the decks a little bit, but they've got to win. There's no incentive for them to get bad. What are they trying to do here, Matt? At least in this upcoming draft.
Save Tony Wrestler money. That's always been the objective here. Let's be real. Hawks do this every year. They make trades just to get under the tax and save salary. That's all this is about. Look, once Jalen Johnson went down and was out for the season, that was it. They were competitive and they could have probably made a run. They were competitive in the in-season tournament. But once that happened, now there's no reason for them to do it. But the question I have is, look, you just let go of Hunter. You let go of Bogdanovic. You have Zachary Risachet. You got Jalen Johnson. You got Dyson Daniels. You got a young core. You're right. You can't get into the lottery because you owe that first round pick to San Antonio. But I'm just asking, in the next 35 minutes, do you look at a Trae Young trade?
Whoa!
Wow.
Now that is quite a tease. I'm going to ask you more about that coming up. We're going to keep monitoring this deadline, talking about the moves, and then also I want to get Matt's opinion on this Jimmy Butler to Golden State Warriors deal. Haize and I had a chance to talk about it on the feed, but I haven't gotten Matt's take yet. So that's all coming up on this live edition of Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Basketball season, it's eating up. The trade deadline, it can't be any hotter right now. There's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings, PrizePicks makes it fun and easy to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Here's how it works. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. This week, you can look at more or less for Jason Tatum on points. How about more for Jimmy Butler when he's due to make his debut? De'Aaron Fox dishing to Wemby in his debut. Maybe you want to go more on De'Aaron Fox assists. The best part, PrizePicks keeps it simple. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds, and their fast, secure withdrawals mean you get paid quickly when you win. Plus, they've got a Taco Tuesday promo that gives you discounted player projections for even more value. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie Winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. More Locked On NBA ahead. All right, thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We are live here on YouTube, examining everything that's going down on the trade deadline. We just had a big deal go down between the Clippers and the Hawks. And Matt, you've got more.
No, not another one. Just this is a non-deal. Gerald Bourget of PHNX from All Cities reports confirming Gambo 987. That's Gambo out in Phoenix. He's like a legendarily tied in guy on radio. The Suns are done for today's NBA deadline. They're not doing anything else. That's it. The Nurkic move was it. Wow. You know that the scene in Titanic where the guys sit down to play the song? Yeah, like cue up the quartet, man. Jeez.
Well, the two things make that interesting. The fact that before this Jimmy Butler thing fell apart, they traded their own first-round pick with Danny Ainge and split that thing up into multiple first-round pick swaps. And everybody was wondering, hey, what are they going to do with that? And they do. I think they moved one of those in that deal that sent Nurkic to Charlotte. But what that did was open up their ability to trade a 2026 first-round pick. But this reporting saying they're not going to do that, Haize.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, clawing for something that makes it seem like they're doing something. Like the Phoenix Suns now being quiet after the Nurkic trade. I wish I could say that it's surprising, but it didn't seem like anything was going to come together for them. Bradley Beal having that no-trade clause completely clammed up most of their plans, even making Kevin Durant available and that not working for them. They're really going to have to take a hard look at themselves in this offseason to decide what they want to do and what direction they want this team to go in, because right as it stands right now, this is just going to be one of the most expensive and disappointing rosters in the NBA.
They will at least save a little bit of money with this Nurkic deal off that huge tax payment, Haize, that we talked about. It was $164 million. I'm not sure what it's going to be after that Nurkic deal. Is one of the lessons here, Matt, that if you're going to form a big three full of superstars, make sure one of them doesn't have a no-trade clause and make sure all of them are eventually amenable to a trade? Because you had the no-trade clause and KD shutting down the Golden State deal, reportedly.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just I just think ego is such a huge part of this. Like Matt Ishbia really just thought that he could just force three great talents together and we'll figure it out. And to his credit, other teams have kind of done that in the past, except when think about the Rockets, right? Like they had Chris Paul. That was a massive trade when they added Chris Paul to James Harden, but that's 2 stars. I really do kind of think there's just not room for 3 anymore. There's just not. You just can't do this with 3 guys. Like the Celtics have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, right? It's 2 guys. And then Derek White is the 3rd dude. but Derek White's not Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, right? There's no real way to make this work. And doing it with the no trade clause means you are locked in. You don't want to trade KD. You love him. He's this all-time great. He is that good. You have Booker. He's your franchise guy. And they were just like, well, there's nobody else, so we'll get Booker. We'll get Beal because Beal's good enough to be that third guy. If you're going to have a third guy, he better do it all. He better do everything. They had an offensive guy in Booker. They had an offensive guy in Durant who's really good defensively. He's underrated, but he's also getting up there in age. Beal he's not like a great playmaker. He's good, but he's not great. He's a pure scorer. That's pretty much all Beal is. He doesn't give you anything else. That third guy's got to be hyper versatile. He's got to be Robert Parrish. He's got to do all the other stuff. And Beal doesn't do that. That to me was their mistake in building that team.
All right, let's talk about go ahead, Haize.
I was saying that, and then not having like the role players that can fill in. Like if you're gonna have three guys that are all kind of one dimensional and do similar things, you have to have the role players in that just do their job, that are lunch pail guys to just do their job. And they tried to do that, but they just didn't execute it very well.
If people wrote research papers on teams or theses on NBA teams, they would certainly be writing one right now about what's going down in Phoenix. But I want to shift to where Jimmy Butler actually ended up, and that is the Golden State Warriors. Let's get the reaction from Locked On Warriors.
The real reason that Jimmy Butler is a better option than Andrew Wiggins is because of playoff Jimmy. And with that, you have a chance to enter the postseason, however that ends up happening, with two legitimate fourth quarter killers on your basketball team. And even if Andrew Wiggins does every other thing that Jimmy Butler does, which I don't think he does, but even if he did, he's never going to be that guy. He's just never going to be that guy. And I think the Warriors decided, based on this year, look, with as much time as Draymond and Kuminga have missed, there's no doubt Andrew Wiggins has been the second most valuable player on the Warriors this year. So I'm not trying to diss Wiggins, but there's a level of killer that he just isn't. And Jimmy Butler just is. And obviously the Warriors were willing to gamble that killer comes out in a way that gives them a shot at this thing.
Okay, Matt, do you buy that there's a difference between Jimmy and Wiggins when it comes to fit, and that fit being the playoff aspect of this?
Yeah, for sure. Like, yes, you increased your level of dog by adding Jimmy Butler, provided he's available. We need
an acronym, right? DOG. We got to figure out what that is, or DAWG.
DAWG, I think, is the thing. Determination above well guarded. There we go.
Disciplined athlete with grit.
There you go.
Did you just come up with that off the dome, or did you have that?
No, I just came up with it.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
All right. Writing that down. Okay. So look, Butler does increase their grit. Killer. Yes. Look, I think if you actually look back, like there's just like a lot of signs they're going down. Like there's a lot of signs that Butler's going down. That he's not the same guy. Go back to the 2023 run. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Okay. 2 years ago, Butler made this run and he was lights out versus the Bucks because he sees Milwaukee green and he just goes insane. It's the Kill Bill sirens turn on, Super Saiyan mode hits, and he is an unstoppable inferno. And he was great versus the Knicks, and they hurt his ankle and he just kind of limped the way. He was out for the rest of that series. They took care of business. And then really in the Celtics series, it wasn't Butler. It was Caleb Martin. It was Gabe Vincent. It was Max Strus. Like the hot shooting and defense and the Celtics whizzing down their leg is what got them through that series to make the finals. And Jimmy wasn't great in the finals either. Follow up the next season, he misses all this time. And the conversation has largely been this, that the Heat wanted him to be more available. And Jimmy Butler's like, no, I'm a playoff guy. That's what I do. You don't need to worry about the regular season. It's your job to figure out the regular season. I come in and close. I don't think you can trust that. They need somebody who's going to, now maybe he's motivated because they just gave him $120 million. Maybe that's it. Is he's mad at the Heat. He's going to prove it to everybody, and he's committed, and they committed to him, and so he's going to go out there and he's going to ball, and he shows up every night, and he's great. Physically, he's not going to be able to do that. He's going to get run down. I have some concerns about the spacing, which is why they still need to try and figure out a deal for Vucevic. think about it. You got Draymond and Jimmy who can do a lot of cool stuff together, but you're still going to have truncated spacing if they're not able to figure that out. Otherwise, you're going to have Buddy Hield out there, and that compromises your defense. Like Steph and Buddy Hield that's a tough defensive backcourt if you're the Warriors trying to get through a series with, no matter how good Jimmy and Draymond are, right? And then you need a big that can kind of bring that all together. Right now, it's Quentin Post, sure. So I still kind of wonder if the Warriors need to make another move here. I just, again, these guys are all so old. It just feels very much like they're trying to force a super team together of guys that would have been awesome in 2000, not even 2017, 2021. This team is amazing. We're 4 years past that, Haize.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's something to be said about having the grumpier old men of the NBA together and just letting that see where they're going to go. Like, I get it. Jimmy is on the slide, and he's not as impactful as what he was before. But you're hoping, especially with him not playing very many games, that he can turn it on in the playoffs, and them collectively as a unit can turn it on in the playoffs. But I think this also puts on pressure on their bench, the young players like Kuminga, to go ahead and show up. What you got, Matt?
Nothing major, just like a small thing. This is from Brad Rowland of Locked On Hawks, who does a great job on that podcast. There's more coming. With the reported confirmed deals, the Hawks have 17 players for 15 roster spots. Now they can just waive Cody Zeller and David Roddy and get there. But that wouldn't get them out of the tax. So the Hawks have to do something else to clear space. They got too many players for the roster spots currently.
All right.
And I think that Brad Rowland also said that his sources were telling him that they would have done that deal for Bogdanovich earlier in the season with no picks attached, and they ended up getting 3 second-round picks. So a good steal for the Hawks in that situation. All right, so let's head back. Let's keep talking about this Butler to Golden State deal and talk about what Miami got in return. They get Andrew Wiggins. Let's hear from Locked On Heat with their take on the deal.
This team just got better in terms of a regular season team because you're not sort of on the Jimmy Butler roller coaster anymore. But that carrot, that possibility of catching lightning in a bottle in the postseason, that doesn't feel there's nobody on this roster. There's nobody quite like that. You know, it's kind of just Jimmy Butler. The star players tend to be star players in the regular season and the postseason. That's why playoff Jimmy was a thing, because it was just a completely different player, because he was not a star in the regular season and then so often became a star in the postseason. And now that you don't have that, there's obviously a ceiling as to what this team could be. They're probably a first round and out team this year. And if they don't make any major changes, first or a second round team next year. But I do think that there's going to be star players who look at Miami and say they're building something.
Haize, are they building something? Does Hero, Bam, Khalil Ware, Wiggins, is that something?
I think it is. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to be a championship contender or anything like that, but call me crazy. I actually like their roster. I think getting Wiggins here can be good for him. Like we talked about yesterday, like they weren't getting anything from Butler really this season because of suspensions and everything else. He's going to bring something to this team. He has been on a championship team before. He knows how to fit in with players that have high volumes and things like that. So I think Wiggins is a really good player for them. And then they still got young players that are emerging as well. Jovic and Jaime Jaquez and those type of players. Khalil Ware is definitely one that's on the rise as well. I'm not saying that this team is going to be a threat to make it into the Eastern Conference Finals or anything, but I do think they have the nice bones of a roster that they can go into the offseason if they want to be aggressive and try to add to it and see what they can be at that point.
Look, I don't want to dismiss and roll my eyes too hard here because it's like the Lakers aren't going to do anything and they get Luka Doncic. But I just the Heat are on a treadmill, man. Like they're on the treadmill and they don't realize it because they had that one fluke finals run. Like you're on the treadmill of mediocrity. This is who you are. The Pistons got here at the end of their run when they made the conference finals like 6 years in a row. And they just kept thinking like we could just run it back and we'll always kind of be there. But the Pistons at least reached a point where they were like, "No, man, it's over. We gotta kind of turn the page here." And the Heat won't. And the reason is because Bam is still where he's at. The problem is Tyler has now played himself to where you go from. I was talking about to Wes Goldberg from Locked On Heat yesterday on Real GM Radio. Like I was like, trade Bam trade Bam and Tyler. You could start fresh right now if you make huge moves. Like, you could just clear the decks here and set yourself up great for the future. Go get that next guy in the like. It's time, but Pat Riley's just not going to do it because Pat Riley's so up there. He's not going to be around.
Yeah, we got a small move here from Shams Charania. The Atlanta Hawks are trading Cody Zeller and Houston's 2028 second-round pick to the Rockets. Sources tell ESPN. No word on what's coming back. Probably not much of anything. But there's a small deal there.
Yeah, I guess like Zeller probably going to get waived by Houston. The Rockets. So the Rockets just take on the money to get their 2028 second rounder back. That's smart work by the Rockets here, right? We'll take on the money. We'll waive him. We're fine with taking on the money. We'll waive Zeller, and then we get our 2028 back. That's smart work by Houston. The Atlanta Hawks are using an asset like, Houston, we have your 2028 second rounder, and now we'll use it to make sure that we can duck the tax. Like, can Hawks fans please get something nice in their lives, please?
All right, we are going to take another short pause, come back. We are less than 20 minutes away from the deadline. We will cover it all coming up here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on that coin toss, heads or tails, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app, head to FanDuel.com to get started, bet just $5, and if you win, you're going to score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Live coverage of the NBA trade deadline continues ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Maybe it's your first watch on YouTube, youtube.com/@LockedOnNBA. Let us know what you think in the chat. The Doc T. Will wants to know any word on the Rockets that we were just mentioning. Small deal there with Atlanta Hawks trading Cody Zeller and Houston's 2028 second-round pick back to the Rockets. Are you confident, Matt, that the Rockets are going to stick to what they've said all along, that they aren't going to make any monumental moves as we're 15 minutes ahead of the deadline?
I don't believe those talks in terms of like that. That's a line that you give out to local media to try and keep things copacetic in the locker room. Like the Rockets, like every team in the league, are scouring for a move that makes sense for them, but it would have to be a major move, and I don't think it's going to happen now. If you're a Houston fan, what you're looking at is your position on your position shorting the Phoenix Suns just jumped by like 150%. That equity has really improved. Do want to add this? Amari Sankofa II from the Detroit Free Press reports Dennis Schroeder is going to end up with the Pistons as part of the Massey Jimmy Butler deal. So the Pistons add a backup playmaker behind Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, a guy to lead their bench. I like that. Gives them a guy that's got playoff experience. Dennis is a pain in the backside, but I think that's actually okay. I would like to see him and Isaiah Stewart get into a practice fight because someone might die. That would be amazing.
Well, yeah. Does he play with Legos? What kind of toys is he going to play with that Isaiah Stewart is going to be for them about? I think that's a question. Certainly, it's going to be much more entertaining to see Dennis Schroeder in a playoff series with Detroit than it would be to see him stuck in Utah. We got another comment here from Floppy Porpoise, who says, praying to God I see Klay Thompson in 2 first for Kobe White before 2 p.m. Haize, did that make your prayer list last night?
No, listen. No, come on. Like, leave Kobe. I feel like the Britney guy. Leave Kobe alone. Just leave him alone.
Okay, let's talk about as we wait for more deals to come in, let's talk quickly about what the Lakers have done post Luka Doncic. They go to the Charlotte Hornets. They acquire center Mark Williams in exchange for Dalton Connect, Cam Reddish, their last remaining available first-round pick that they could trade, the 2031 unprotected first-round pick. They also traded a 2030 pick swap. From the Lakers' perspective, do you like this trade for them, adding Mark Williams? They were looking for a center. They found a young one in Charlotte. Haize, do you like this deal?
Yeah, I like it because you want a lob threat with Luka. It just makes sense. I have concerns about Mark Williams' ability to stay healthy. If he was a healthier player over his short stint in the NBA so far, I'd feel a lot better about it. But overall, I think that they're getting basically what they wanted out of it. I know that, I think people still have this view of Mark Williams as who he was in college that he hasn't all the way shown yet in the NBA, but it's still there. They get a young guy that they can develop or whatever. And I think this is the first step in them kind of starting to reshape that roster around the skill set of Luka.
Sidebar. This is from Joe Cowley, who I know Haize is familiar with.
Big fan.
But somebody that is connected. Here's the explanation I got on Vooch. Quote, offers were underwhelming, and the Bulls front office doesn't think they can drop more than a few spots in the standings with or without Vooch. They feel he'll bring in more value this summer. So moving Zach LaVine and getting the pick back was the priority. So it doesn't sound like Nikola Vucevic is going anywhere at the deadline. Haize, your reaction?
I mean, it makes some sense. I think, with him having another year under contract, you can move him in the offseason, his expiring contract at that point in time. Yes, he's having a really good statistical season this year. And common thought is to think, okay, you can move that guy now. But if you're not getting the deals that you like, wait till the offseason. I don't think the deals get any worse for Nikola Vucevic. He's usually a pretty healthy and durable player. So I think it's a calculated risk by the Bulls of saying, hey, we're not hearing the exact deals that we want. We don't think they're going to get any worse if we wait till the offseason. So they've maintained their ability to keep their pick regardless of where they finish the season. I think that's a solid priority for them.
Matt, your thoughts on that Lakers deal that we were just talking about, acquiring Mark Williams?
Sorry to keep bumping you off of the program, Doug.
All good. No, that's what this live edition of Locked On NBA is all about. We're bouncing, baby.
So I pay a lot of attention to your reaction to it, honestly, because look, I've watched Mark Williams, but I haven't watched him as much this season because the Hornets are sad. And so I've really kind of relied on you. And when your reaction was kind of like, that's fine. I thought that was really notable. I think it's very notable that Hornets fans are not screaming bloody murder that their young center. I'm kind of writing about this on one of the Substacks is the word I got last summer was that there were only two, and I will stress this. I double checked. There were only two names that were untouchable for Charlotte, and that was Brandon Miller and Mark Williams, and not LaMelo Ball. Now, I think that's changed because I think LaMelo showed up and become this amazing force of just super usage, and that's changed. He's an all-star or deserves to be an all-star. That changes the calculation. So for them to go from Mark Williams is untouchable now to Mark Williams got moved here for this. They got really good return back. I'm a little bit surprised that everyone's like Dalton Connect was not blah, 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 blah. It's this defense was bad. Yeah, he's a rookie. Of course he was bad. If you don't want the defense to be bad, don't draft a rookie. What are you doing? I think Dalton Connect's gonna be really great for them. I think I love his rookie of the year stock, by the way, over at FanDuel, because I think LaMelo is going to set him up and he'll be able to make a lot of shots. I like that addition. They got great pick equity. The pick equity is not as good because after the Luka trade, a lot of the stuff on the Lakers pick value was, hey, you're getting these picks after LeBron is gone and AD can't hold them up and AD's probably gone too. So you could be getting a really great pick. And now it's oh, you're going to get the 25th or worse pick because as Luka leads them to their fourth conference finals. But still, end of the round, first rounder is still really good for what they gave up. I thought this was a really good deal for Charlotte. Mark Williams, defensively, they're going to have to play drop. You have Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. You really want to be playing drop coverage? Do you really want to be playing drop coverage? I don't think people understand how bad the defense is going to be. The offense is going to cook, so maybe that's enough, but I don't think people really understand how bad the defense is going to be. That said, anytime that you give Luka Doncic a big center who can roll to the rim and dunk it, you're doing good things because the Mavs didn't do that for 5 years. And then we saw what happened once they gave him Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. So is Mark Williams as good as Derek Lively? Under no circumstances. I called Derek Lively yesterday. He's the defensive version of a 3-level scorer. So you can defend on switch at the level, in drop, or in zone. And so you've got all these kind of options with Derek Lively, and Mark Williams is not that. He's a 1-level scorer. Doug, go ahead.
Well, I would say that over the past couple of weeks, what's been strange is that he's become a 0-level defender. Yeah. That he struggled he struggled. He's always struggled with physicality against bigger, more physical bigs down low. He's always done that. But what he did early in his career, and I mean, it's been a short career, but his rookie season before he got hurt with a thumb injury, what we saw was a guy that could defend switches, could stay up top, could hang. He was blocking Trae Young's three-point shots. There was some promise there. But then he's decided to put on weight, and that coincided with the injuries to the back and the injuries to the foot. And man, when that happens to centers when they're young, back injuries, foot injuries, a lot of alarm bells go up. And it'll be interesting. He's looked slower. He's looked more plodding, and it's been difficult to watch him play defensively over the past couple of weeks. So does all that change when he gets a little bit more offensively active? Because there are not a lot of playmakers in Charlotte that are healthy and available, and so it's been difficult to get him the ball down low. That's going to completely change overnight for him with Los Angeles. It's going to be very interesting to watch. And from the Hornets' perspective, they just continue to collect first-round picks, first-round assets. So it will be interesting to see what they do this coming off season. This is a new ball club with different ownership, different incentives, and different general manager in Jeff Peterson, who has been willing and able to get deals done. The question will be, can he actually improve the roster? So we will find out that for sure. All right, so we continue to wait. We are 9 minutes away from the deadline, and typically some things will happen like right after the deadline, right? Like when the clock strikes 3, we still could get some news to break. Here's a question that I want to throw out to both of you. With the teams remaining that we have seen either make small moves or no moves, who would you be most disappointed in if they didn't make a move, like not like an earth-shattering move, but just some kind of significant move to get better? We haven't seen a lot of that from the top 4 teams. Who would disappoint you most if they don't make some kind of improvement here in the next 9 minutes, Matt?
On the good, there's a good team and a bad team. The good team is Orlando. This team is good enough to compete. They can do this. They can make a run, but you got to get some offense, man. You cannot go into the playoffs with the kind of offense that you've shown. I get it. You like your guys, but you got Goga and you got Isaac and you got Carter. You were able to trade those guys, move one of them along with some assets and get yourself an offensive upgrade. There are offensive upgrades out there. Go get one. This team, I've heard some concern this week that the Magic are kind of the thought that like, look, we just, injuries, we weren't able to put it together. Let's not do anything rash. Let's wait. Because everybody wants the timing to be right. Again, I always say GMs move out of opportunity, not necessity. And the idea, I think, is like, well, we're not going to do anything to fix it because maybe we're just not that good. You are that good. We've seen it. You have this capacity. Your defense is elite. You're built for a playoff run. Go get somebody. The bad teams, what is Portland doing? For the love of God, are you really going to ride this wave of nonsense in late January and cost yourself the chance to get Dylan Harper, let alone Cooper Flagg, and not cash in on Robert Williams, DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant? Move somebody, Portland. What are you doing?
I have no idea why the Portland Trailblazers have not done anything. The Portland Trailblazers were a team, them and the Brooklyn Nets, that I expected to be the most active around this time, and they've really, in a lot of ways, been the least active. I know Brooklyn did make their moves earlier, and fine, that was great. There was smart moves to help secure their tank. But the Portland Trailblazers, their quietness at this deadline is shocking to me. Not only did they have players like Robert Williams that they should have been moving, Anthony Simons, who could have got them something, like they just have players that you just look at this roster and you're like, yeah, they should be shipping off about 3 or 4 players at this deadline. Maybe they're going to push some of it back to the offseason. Jeremy Grant's another one, so maybe they'll push that off to the offseason. So they're definitely a shock of a team to me that has not made any type of moves. So I'm right along there with Matt. The other team that I will mention as well that I did think would do something is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I thought that I really thought that they would make some type of move to kind of clear up some of the stuff on that roster. How quiet they are. I thought they would try to make a move to get better. There may be another team that's just waiting until the offseason when it's all said and done.
Chris Haynes reporting that the Washington Wizards announced they have waived guard Reggie Jackson, who they just acquired in a trade. What will you remember most about the Reggie Jackson era in Washington, Matt?
Just the memories. Like it's incredible when you have a player that comes in and the fans really connect with them, and to see that kind of move on. Honestly, I'm just impressed that Nico Harrison didn't trade Kyrie Irving for him. So good job by him.
Okay, so Jake Fisher has KJ Martin, who was moved from Philadelphia for what looked like maybe some tax savings, Josh Richardson, and a 2028 second-round pick going from Detroit. to Utah. Have you been surprised? Philadelphia, not a name that came up in that previous discussion. Have you been surprised in their relative inactivity, Matt?
Which team? I'm sorry, Doug.
The Philadelphia 76ers.
I mean, they've traded a lot of guys. I mean, they traded several guys, right? They had Quentin Grimes. They did make some moves. I don't think. Look, you just put this team together, and you haven't really gotten to see it together. We've talked about that all year, and yeah, sure, you can make the argument you should, maybe switch it up or move Paul George. And if they do that in the next 5 minutes, I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't know how you just bail on it. If you're going to deconstruct this team, if you're just like, it's time to give it up and move everything and start the process over, you do that this summer. That's something to keep in mind with a lot of these moves. Is just like teams would rather do it in the off season. It's easier to get more deals done. Not everybody's so uptight and competitive. You're able to get kind of more liquidity. People are looking for fresh starts, and you're able to kind of get a better overall view of your roster and your team and look at it and go, all right, I think we've decided that we need to do this, rather than in season. You're like, well, sure. I mean, but did you see how we played versus the Hornets? Like, we were really good that night. Like, you're able to talk yourself into things. Sorry for taking the swipe at the Hornets, Doug. But like, that to me is how this kind of works out. Is if the Sixers want to make drastic moves, they wait till the offseason. Right now, they're saving money and stockpiling more assets to figure out what they could do this summer.
You can take all the swipes you want, because we will protect ourselves with a shield of future first-round picks, wherever those picks land. I mean, that one pick that they got from Phoenix, I think, has to go through 4 teams before it ever lands.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, what do we got?
Memphis Grizzlies are trading. That's not a big one. Memphis Grizzlies are trading Marcus Smart in a 2025 first-round pick to the Washington Wizards in a multi-team trade that sends 2 second-round picks to Memphis. Sources tell ESPN from Shams Charania. Memphis creates roster flexibility with the move. I don't know what Memphis is going to keep trying to do stuff for like the next 4 minutes. We'll see if they can pull anything off. I'm a little surprised. There was word out of Memphis that they were going to keep Smart because they were like, hey, he's been actually really good for us. Sucks that he gets traded to the Wizards and has to be a Washington Wizard. Hopefully they reroute him somewhere in the next 30 seconds or at least this summer. But, I think it's interesting that the Grizzlies did this kind of move. I'll be interested. Bob Myers on ESPN accidentally leaked, quote unquote, that the Grizzlies actually made a play for Durant last night, which makes a lot of sense. Grizzlies are looking for an upgrade, but that's the kind of move I think that they want. And I would expect Memphis to, if I don't think anything's going to come available, because it's just easier to say that, they'll chase something big this summer, but I'm not sure if Memphis is going to do anything in the next 3 minutes.
If they don't do anything, Haize, do they have a shot at upending Oklahoma City in the postseason? We got a tweet, I think, some kind of social media post from Chet Holmgren throwing up the 7 signal, the bat signal, saying that his return is imminent as soon as Friday. They also made a trade for Daniel Tyus, giving the Pelicans cash in exchange for Daniel Tyus and a 2031 second-round pick. If Memphis doesn't do anything of significance at this deadline, do they have a shot at upending OKC?
I mean, they're top 10 in offense, top 10 in defense. There's always a chance. I'm not going to give them a high chance of probability, but I'll say this. If that team is fully healthy in the playoffs and they could stay fully healthy in the playoffs, I give them a 25% chance to beat the OKC Thunder. What
do you think, Matt? And I've had you supered wrong the whole time. Sorry about that. I'll fix that in just a second. That was from Haize and I talking about the Jimmy Butler deal. But what do you think about that, Matt?
By the way, Clippers are trading Kevin Porter Jr. to the Bucks for Marjon Beauchamp. Chris Haynes reports. Sure. Which team are we talking about?
The Grizzlies. What chances, if they don't make a significant move, what chances do you give the Grizzlies of competing with the Oklahoma City Thunder in the postseason?
I like him because I think you need roster flexibility and versatility to be OKC. You need to be able to match up what you can do. So the biggest thing is you need to counter program them. Too many teams try and do, the Thunder are playing small. Let's go super small. And I don't know why they do that. You're never going to beat OKC that way. But if OKC tries to go small with one big, you go 2 big with Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson. If they go big with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein, you go small with Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark. They've got versatility there. Any sort of major move is going to involve Brandon Clark, and that costs them that roster flexibility. Santi Aldama has been quietly having a phenomenal season. Gigi Jackson's really good. Scottie Pippen Jr. is really good. They have a lot of guys, I think, that can genuinely help them construct the kind of lineups that they're going to need. You need to be able to throw different options out there, and Memphis has that. I say that.
Okay, speaking of, Chris Haynes reporting the Sacramento Kings are acquiring Jake LaRavia from Memphis. League sources.
See, that makes sense, right? Is like LaRavia was the one that was kind of out of the circle there. Like he was the one that I think they had questions about. So they moved Smart and LaRavia, and they're in on their guys. And I think that we'll see if they pull off something for another upgrade. But they look like they're at least maneuvering now or in the summer to consolidate down and add like a major component. We'll see where they get to. But if they make a trade, great, depending on who it is. If they keep this roster, yeah, I think they can still go toe to toe with OKC.
All right, we have hit the hour the hour is upon us. We have hit relative midnight on the NBA trade deadline, so we will see what spills out here in the meantime. I do want to talk about one of the other big deals that got done. Brandon Ingram, now a member of the Toronto Raptors. The Pelicans, they do make a deal for one of their stars. Let's head over to Sean Woodley of Locked On Raptors for his take on his team acquiring Brandon Ingram.
Bring in Brandon Ingram, who, again, former All-Star back in 2019-20. He is a very good scorer, the best scorer that they've had on this team in quite some time. He brings to the table, some pick and roll craft. He obviously can go and get his own shot when the chips are down. He helps cover for some of the stuff that I think we've learned this year that Scotty Barnes is maybe not so great at. The downside is that this trade kind of nukes this era. This is day one of the end of the Scotty Barnes era, and they're right back trying to rebuild in 3-4 years' time when Scotty Barnes has asked for a trade because the team just can't get out of its own way. Again, I don't think that's necessarily the most likely outcome here, but it's on the table, and it's why it gives me pause.
Haize, did that move give you pause? Did you assume that Toronto would be a little bit more patient here than going after Brandon Ingram and trying to win now?
Yes, because it makes absolutely no sense for them. They literally just last year got off of having a bunch of players that were similar in type to Brandon Ingram. Versatile forwards that can play multiple positions. You make this move, you go right back to it. And it's not like the Toronto Raptors are knocking at the door of even a playing appearance. I think, but last I checked, what are they, 5.5 games out? They're behind even the Brooklyn Nets. This move to me doesn't make any sense other than clearing salary. Maybe if you're just going to let him expire or try to force a signing trade so you can get something back. This move for the Toronto Raptors makes absolutely no sense. They're not a good basketball team. They've had players like Brandon Ingram before. I don't see what the point of making it and giving up a first-round pick to complete the trade did for them.
No deals for the Minnesota Timberwolves. No deals for the Denver Nuggets. Wolves reported by multiple outlets. I can confirm Denver, no deals. So Western Conference quote unquote contenders making no moves at the deadline. If you're looking to try and build, I don't know why you add Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram's going to be like the last piece that you add. You got to be like, look, we have our number 1 and our number 2, and we're looking for our number 3. But the problem is he's up for this extension, and he's going to want the money of a number 2, or at least a number 2, if not a number 1. I don't love the fit with Barnes and Ingram. Raptors fans will love him. They'll figure out a way to kind of be competitive. The Raptors can't seem to make up their mind. Now, I don't think they're going to play together this season. What they're going to try and do this season is tank out, get a top 5 pick, build around Barnes, Ingram, and whoever they get, right? You can swap Jakob Poeltl. You just move Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk to get those. You could swap out Chris Boucher this summer. You can make other moves. So you can kind of reconfigure the team. But to me, all you're doing is you're reconfiguring a team to compete for the 6th seed. That's as high as you're going to get. You're not going to crack top 5. You're not going to crack top 3 with this Toronto Raptors team. I don't see the point, but that's what they're doing.
Is there a structure to the extension that would slightly change your opinion on that? If it were short on years, or if it appeared to be a discount to what you feel like he was looking for in New Orleans, would that change your mind at all about this deal?
No, I mean, I just don't like, if you get a discount, sure, but what are you going to do with the cap space? Like, you can add other guys, I guess, but just add the other guys, just add guys. I just don't know how, if you're like, we want somebody that's going to help us win games, you add Brandon Ingram. I'm not trying to like slam Brandon. It's not his fault. It's more of just the way that he plays. Like, he's just not a player. He doesn't raise your ceiling or your floor. You're not like, oh man, they won that game because Ingram had 40. And you're not like, oh man, thank God they had Ingram because he at least can carry you to 40 wins. No, you can be a sub 500 team with Ingram. We've seen it consistently. And you're not going to be a championship contender with Ingram next to good talent. We've seen that too. I don't know why you look at Ingram's career and reach this idea. Now, he's still growing and getting better. Maybe he gets there. He's become a much better passer. Last season in particular, he made real strides as a passing threat. But I like Barnes a lot. And so maybe that's the thing here is if Barnes is just, if he makes another leap and he's incredible, then Ingram as number 2 makes a little bit of sense. But overall, I can't get there on this being a winning concoction.
Speaking of the Toronto Raptors, they are involved in another trade. Shams Charania reporting that the Indiana Pacers are trading James Wiseman and cash to the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, poor Wiseman out for the season after, I can't remember his ACL or Achilles, but he's out for the season. Pacers are attaching cash to Wiseman's contract. Pacers just moving stuff to get off of the books, so that makes sense. Knicks, nothing in the work. They're done for the day via Ian Begley.
Chris Haynes has Golden State done with trades. So it doesn't, I mean, we've eliminated a lot of the teams that I think would have been in line, particularly Minnesota, not moving Randall. We've eliminated a lot of the teams that I think either have already made their big moves or were due to make a big move. So as you zoom out, Hayes, and you look at a deadline that maybe like right up to the minute it wasn't as exciting. It was extremely exciting in the weeks leading up, and particularly this last week. What is your sort of blanket umbrella 30,000 foot overall take on how teams approached this deadline, how they executed it, particularly under the constraints that so many were under due to the collective bargaining agreement?
I mean, I think that we've seen them find a way to maneuver and still be active, still be aggressive where they need to be. The Milwaukee Bucks got underneath the second tax apron, which was a smart move for them just generally there as they look to still whatever they want to do in the future. So I think overall we saw teams find a way. And that like, not to quote Jurassic Park, but life finds a way. Like you're always going to adapt to the CBA. Yeah, it's really restrictive. And some teams were impacted by that more than others, namely the Phoenix Suns. But I think as we just keep going forward in this, the one thing that it shows to me is that there's not going to be a lack of movement. There's not going to be a lack of being able to improve your team. Sometimes you may have to take a step back to take a longer term step forward when it's all said and done. But as long as teams are willing to be honest in their evaluation, that it's always going to be active. There's always going to be times. There's always going to be ways that you can improve. You just got to be smart about how you manage your money. And I think that's what we saw over here. Outside of Nico Harrison is probably the worst GM in the game of basketball. But
yeah, no moves for the Magic.
Okay, surprising.
Sigh. Part of the trade is via Bobby Mark. Sacramento is sending Alex Len, Colby Jones, and their 2028 second to Memphis for Jake LaRavia. Colby Jones can play. Alex Len's another big. I actually don't mind that. Like if you're like, we got to stock up because ED may not be playable in the playoff series, which I'm a little bit worried about. If you face Denver, you're going to need 12 fouls versus Jokic that you can pass around, right? Like you need to be able to do that. If you face the Mavericks, you need as many bigs as possible. So I don't hate that part of the trade, honestly, for Denver. And they pick up the Kings 2028 second rounder. Makes it a little bit easier. People are freaking out about the Marcus Smart trade without really understanding, like, yeah, Marcus might just be cooked here. They traded for a guy. The lesson is really just don't trade with Boston. Don't ever trade with Boston, man. You're not going to come out it. Don't trade with Danny Ainge and don't trade with Boston. Those two guys, not going to work out well for you. You can trade with Masai again. That's the good news, but you can't trade with either of those guys.
What should we add an addendum or a caveat to your Danny Ainge take there that only trade with Danny Ainge if he's completely unaware of the deal that he's actually a part of? Because wasn't that the reporting that Danny wasn't quite sure that he was involved in the Luka to LA deal for his part of it? So maybe there's an addendum there. Matt Hayes, who improved their team most at this deadline? Matt.
The Los Angeles Lakers.
The Lakers.
The Lakers? Like they got Luka Doncic. Let's see who else kind of really made themselves better. The Cavs. That DeAndre Hunter deal is like, that's really good work, man. Like you know, and I talk about optionality and having all these different choices, but the Cavs have this kind of problem where it's like, okay, who's going to be your other guy? Well, Isaac Okoro. Do you believe in him? Sam Merrill. Like you're a little bit, and DeAndre Hunter, you can just be like, yeah, this is our guy. Like our five are the core four and DeAndre Hunter. That's who we're putting on the floor at the end of a game versus the Boston Celtics. There's a clip floating around of Jason Tatum cooking DeAndre Hunter. No one thinks that DeAndre Hunter is a Jason Tatum stopper. Jason Tatum's not going to get stopped. I'll tell you what, you'd rather have Jason Tatum playing ISO and shooting twos than them hitting the open threes. The Cavaliers definitely need a little bit more athleticism in order to contain and help out with recovery on threes to limit them. This was a very good move for them. I think that in terms of today's moves, it's got to be I think the DeAndre Hunter move, like Haize, I like the DeAndre Hunter move more than I like the Jimmy Butler trade.
Oh, I love the DeAndre Hunter move. I think that's great for that Cleveland Cavaliers team. I think it does wonders for them. Yeah, it just makes them dangerous.
Miles Turner just tweeted a smiling, crying face with an image of the Survivor logo. Outlist, outplay, outlast.
That is hilarious.
As he gets through another deadline with the Indiana Pacers.
That's hilarious.
That's amazing. Which franchise improved their future the most? Maybe not this season. Maybe they didn't improve their roster the most. Which franchise at this deadline do you think improved their future outlook the most, Haize?
I'm going with San Antonio. I think adding De'Aaron Fox and giving Wemby a point guard that he can pair with for long term is literally exactly what that franchise needed. They did that without giving up any of the Atlanta picks, and they kept Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and every other young piece that they had there. I think that they add exactly what they need, and we'll see how it works out the rest of the season. But I think going into next year, man, that's a dangerous team in San Antonio.
Cam Johnson doesn't get moved.
It's crazy, right?
A little surprising, right? Now, I'd heard that one of the things was that the Nets were kind of the opinion that they're like, look, we don't have good enough offers, and we don't think we're going to get better ones. We think that this is probably like the best that we're going to get, but we're going to wait because you always hope that the stock will rebound. So they'll revisit this summer and move off of him this summer. But that's a big miss, I think. Not a big miss. It's a shame that they were unable to move that off. That to me is not shocking because I kind of heard it, but a little surprising. Vucevic to me is another one where I'm just like, really? Like, I guess, they're banking that they'll be able to get something great this summer. I do kind of don't understand, if you're going to shop a guy this aggressively, you're never going to get like you know what you get great return for is if you don't tell anybody and then you trade him secretly, unless you're Nico Harrison trading the second best player in the NBA. So like that to me is like when you're the Bulls and you got these guys out there forever, they did pretty well in the Levine trade, but and I get extending Lonzo totally fine. Like I don't have a problem with keeping him. But retaining Vooch just doesn't seem like my big thing with Vooch. Haize is just like, you're stunting the young guys. Like there's no point in it. Yeah. You still got Vooch has got to get touches and points and all that. You want to save money. Great. Go the whole way. And just be bad. Why? I don't understand the resistance to being bad there because they're not.
You know what it is? I've called this on my show all the time. Arturas has completion anxiety. He starts something all the time. He never finishes seeing it all the way through. He starts, but he says that initially he came in here into Chicago saying that he wanted to build organically over time and through the draft. And 3 months later, he traded 3 future first-round picks and brought in a 30-year-old center. He wants to go younger. You trade Zach LaVine. You extend Lonzo Ball. You don't do anything with Nikola Vucevic. AK is just a president of basketball operations that he starts something, he just never sees it through. Never.
Completion anxiety, you say?
Yeah.
You should listen to Locked On Podcast more because we've run ads for solutions to completion anxiety. Matt George, the host of Locked On Kings, tweeting out, Jake LaRavia has a defensive rating of 110.7 this season with Memphis. That would currently rank as number 1 on the Sacramento Kings. Keon Ellis right now owns the best defensive rating on the team with 112.1. Anyone shocked that Boston, a team that has been looking to light the fire on their repeat, did not do anything really of substance to shake up that roster?
No, they're in that same spot that Denver was last year. Oh, we make a trade. We're the defending champions. We're right on track. We're going to repeat. They're exactly where Denver was last year.
Is that the right mindset?
No. I'll tell you that like a good example of this is, so I still think that the Cavaliers matching up with Boston is, even after the Hunter trade, like they just can't match up with them because they can't contain their threes until you prove to me, like I'll go into the series with that expectation if they play, is that they can't contain the threes and so Boston's going to win. And if they do it, then I'll be like, hey, they were able to figure it out and do it. But a big reason why they won that game the other night was Luke Cornett. Is Luke Cornett a playoff player? Is he a serious player? No. Like Luke's good. Like Luke does his job and is really effective and he's a minutes eater. But like all the guys on the Boston Celtics bench should be absolute food. They weren't last year. Teams weren't able to take advantage of it in part because their best players were all out. If nobody does it, if everybody just lets them skate by with Peyton Pritchard, Luke Cornett, and Sam Hauser coming out there and getting minutes instead of targeting them and breaking them down and being like, you're going to have to run Derek White and Drew Holiday into the ground. The Celtics are going to repeat. And that's what the Celtics are banking on. Like, they feel that you got to feel awesome. You love all your guys right now. I'm not surprised they didn't do a deal. They kicked the tires on some Xavier Tillman trades because he's suddenly out of the rotation. I continue to be baffled by the fact that every single team in this league, not every, 80, 95% of the teams in this league need a backup center, and nobody wants to trade any good assets to get one, despite everybody knowing that everybody else needs one. Nobody wants to give up good assets for him. It's absolutely crazy to me.
So before we get out of here, let's transition to what comes next. The buyout markets. We've got some reporting here on from Brian Windhorst saying the Cavaliers and the Rockets are buyout locations for Ben Simmons. Haize, thoughts on that, on a fit for Ben Simmons with Cleveland or Houston? And I will add to this any other buyout candidates that you can think of that would be particularly attractive for teams.
I think Ben Simmons fits. I could see him fitting on the Rockets. I think his defense and his playmaking ability could fit there as long with his rebounding. I'm just not a big Ben Simmons guy, so it's difficult for me to try to find the right spot for him. But I do think like the Rockets almost anybody can fit on the Rockets, so I can see that working out there. As far as other buyout candidates, that's a great question. Nobody comes to mind right off the top of them, but that's mainly because I haven't really thought about it. Maybe John Collins with Utah is probably a potential buyout candidate there that I would say.
What's the best case scenario if the Cavaliers add Ben Simmons? What's the best case scenario? What does that look like? Like, what is a best case outcome for the Cleveland Cavaliers if they add Ben Simmons in a buyout market look like, Doug?
I don't know, is a good cheerleader on the bench. Like, I'm not sure what that would look like in a postseason scenario.
Yeah. It's tough, right? Like, good playmaker. I think like maybe some bench minutes, get him out there, surround him with like Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, one of the two bigs that you start with, and Hunter. Okay. All right. That's athletic shooting. That makes sense. I can see it kind of working. I'm just not sure that you're like, if you're looking at the Cavaliers and you're like, what's missing? I don't know that Ben Simmons is the answer. Now I think Denver should go after him because Denver needs literally anyone that can guard. They just need anyone that can guard. So adding Ben Simmons and Russell Westbrook and trying to win a championship with them would be an incredible calling your shot by the Nuggets front office.
A final question from me, and then we'll go to some final thoughts before we get out of here. Steve Kerr, after the Wiggins trade, and the game that it took place. I mean, the game took place right after that trade, so a little bit of awkward interactions between Wiggins, the team, the rest of his teammates. After the game, Steve Kerr saying that maybe the NBA should take a look at the trade deadline and possibly move it back into the period that all the teams are off. There were reasons for moving it a little bit sooner. Do you agree with Steve Kerr or do you disagree? Do you like where the trade deadline is in terms of its place on the calendar relative to the All-Star break, or does the NBA need to consider moves so that we don't have these situations where not only do you have players that you maybe have to sit, it's obviously influencing the games, but also you've got like fans breaking news to benches. Like, there's all kinds of these implications in this sort of new media landscape that we're in. Matt, do you align with Steve Kerr there, or do you think it's fine how it is?
I think they need to move it back. I hate that they moved this before the All-Star weekend, in part because they used to be a reason for all the GMs to have to go to All-Star weekend, and I'm all for making them sit through the insanity, the ridiculous stupidity of All-Star weekend. But they would have to go because that's where you would get deals done, is you would get in a room person to person and you would make these deals. I do think there's probably some upside to being like, hey, we're going to have All-Star weekend. You got 4 days. Then you got the trade deadline, move it back to 6 p.m., have it be a night event, and then one late game after. And if they happen to do a trade, if you're on that night, like, hey, we got a game tomorrow night after the deadline, so we're going to do a deal. We need to do it the day before so that we don't have to deal with the chaos of that day. It gives you a little bit of a heads up that we're the only team playing. I do think that's a really good idea, is make it into more of an event, stack it up at 6, game starts at 7, go from there. That to me is like the way to go about it.
Or just make it to where the week of the Super Bowl, you finally give all the NBA teams that bye week and let the trades happen then.
I want to share this from Nikola Jokic last night. I wasn't able to be at the arena, but my colleague on Locked On Nuggets, Ryan Blackburn, got this quote from Jokic at the podium, and I think it's really good. Okay. I'm sympathetic to the players that don't like this. It's awful. If you have kids and you're just like, hey, I got to move to Milwaukee now, that sucks, right? Like, hey, we got to move to LA now. That honestly sucks. Like, if you just like, you have friends there. Like, my kids are in school and they have friends. They would be absolutely heartbroken if it was like, hey, pack your stuff, we're going, or the alternative is your dad's just gone. Your dad's like, well, I got to go work in this other city for however long, even with the travel for road trips, et cetera. But Jokic said this, and I think it's really good. He was asked about kind of the thoughts on the trade deadline. He says, we signed a contract. You can be traded. Be professional. Don't close the door behind you if you get traded. Just be professional. It can happen. Don't take it personally. It's a business. It's a job. It's not that you're going to do something else. You're going to another team to play basketball. I think it can happen. That doesn't mean you're a bad player or a good player. Just maybe the team wants to change the energy or the style of play. It's a normal thing to happen in the NBA. I can be sympathetic to the fact that players are human and deserve consideration for their feelings and emotion, just like the rest of us go through, and also recognize that, like, hey, you're also given all the benefits of being an NBA player: salary, perks, treated like a god, traded for players worse than you, to a friend that you knew from your time as a shoe salesman. Like, there are all sorts of nice things that can happen to you as an NBA player. But I do think it's just like, yeah, it's tough, but this is kind of part of it. And the results, the net impact, I think, for everybody is pretty positive.
We actually, Haize and I got into a good discussion about this topic relative to Bradley Beal deciding not to exercise his no trade clause, despite the fact that it's clear, like, Phoenix as a team wanted to move out of the Bradley Beal business and to some other kind of business. And I said, it's remarkable that he held on to that, because so many times we see players across the league making all kinds of sacrifices, personal sacrifices, their families making personal sacrifices. Speaking to what you were just talking about there, Matt, which makes it remarkable when a guy says, you know what, I'm just going to hang here because I don't want my family to move. We like it here. And I don't want to go to another team, even though this team doesn't want me. So yeah, it's remarkable when they make those decisions. And I don't think anyone else is going to get a no trade clause, maybe ever again.
Ever again. Don't ever give anyone else a no trade clause ever again. Small note, Marvin Bagley III is going to Memphis as part of the trade. I hope he doesn't get waived. I actually think Marvin Bagley's secretly good. I think he's like secretly actually okay now. I think he's actually pretty good.
Okay, Haize, final words here as we wrap this show up.
Fun trade deadline. Fun. It's probably the craziest trade deadlines. When you take everything that's happened over the last week or two, it's been crazy. It's been fun. It's been great to cover. And I'll see you guys this time next year again.
And my final word is, take that, Roger Goodell. You want to move into the NBA's territory? We're going to take Super Bowl week from you. Forget all of those frivolous storylines. Oh, the Chiefs are healthy. Big deal. We've got moves all over the place in the NBA. I love it. And that's the only reason that I would advocate not moving the trade deadline to some other date, is just because if you can work it where you can stick it to the NFL and Super Bowl week. I like that. I like that petty play, as Haize likes to say. If you like what you heard today, if you like what you saw today here on the live feed, make sure to subscribe to Locked On NBA. We are on Monday through Friday talking about everything going down in the NBA. We will turn our attention back to the games and the debuts. I want to talk about De'Aaron Fox's debut with the Spurs. That's already happened. We are due for debuts for Luka Doncic in LA, Anthony Davis in Dallas, and so much more. Thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On NBA. We will be back tomorrow to wrap up the week with our favorite things. Thanks to Matt and Haize for their expertise every single day. We'll see you tomorrow on Locked On NBA.